Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the 21 for 21 podcast, 21 lessons for sport media in the 21st century. As always, my name is Jamie Coles and I'm joined by Stuart Levy. Stuart, double figures, episode number 10.
I know we're just edging ever closer to that halfway mark. It just feels real now. It seemed like a random number to start with a 21 podcast challenge, but now we're strongly into double figures. It's certainly a nice achievement to get to.
Yeah, it feels kind of surreal actually that we've been doing this for 11 weeks now, week in, week out, putting out a podcast and from September, and now here we are in the throes of November. Christmas decorations are on sale in the shops, and we're into a good rhythm with the podcast. So
yeah, no, definitely. It's good that it's taking up a bit of time, and it's normally for me it's a lunch break activity, but now we can nicely segue into today's guest, because the reason I'm able to record this week in working hours is because we thought we'd invite my boss along. Peter, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Hey, nice to be with you, Jamie.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much for joining. So Peter Weber is the CEO and founder of Iris, which is, as far as I'm aware, a sports marketing data analytics sort of company. Maybe Peter's the man to explain this better.
That's a nice question. Yeah, when I'm talking to my kids and they're trying to find out what I'm doing, it's always a quite complicated matter to say this is what we're doing and this is what our clients take from it and so on. So it's a question that comes across me more than just once. And honestly, when I first been in touch with this industry, my first question isn't somebody's really paying for that. Yeah, so this is really good for something. So it's no shame to not be aware about what we're doing. I think in fact what we're trying to do is we're trying to advise clients that are in sports marketing, or if you want to use a simpler word for that, in sports sponsoring. And what are we providing to them as a value add? We're trying to provide them valuable insights in order to make better decisions and to make them more successful. And why is something like this necessary in sports marketing? It's because there's no data fundament that you could buy anywhere. Yeah, if for example, in normal advertisements, you would be paying money for advertisement spots, or you would have to pay for a certain amount of audience that you could reach with a certain broadcast and stuff like this. And there's a trading around that, and there's a market around that. Yeah, something like a transparent market doesn't exist like this in sports marketing. There's established market prices, but there's a lot of parties selling and buying. And then knowing the market, understanding the market, being able to establish a kind of a rationale around pricing, around what you can expect from an activity. That's a kind of what we're supporting our clients with. Yeah.
So that's insights into sponsoring, sort of like shirt sponsors, or the boards that we see on the side of the pitch sponsors, or is that the kind of thing that, am I right in thinking that's?
It's the most simplistic occurrence of it. Yeah, it could go into storytelling around players. It could go into storytelling approaching a fan base with certain attributes that may be related to sponsors. So it could be simpler or more sophisticated, but in the end, it's about what you just mentioned. Yeah, nowadays visibilities are still a kind of something which is of importance, because people will want to learn about sponsors and who they are and what they're offering. Yeah. But it's also very much about experience, also very much about emotional binding and the transport of something to the hearts of fans. Yeah.
Okay, so the insights that you're providing then are the kind of which fans are where, and whether that's relevant for that team or that sport or the athlete to be entering into that market, or what's the kind of? I'm just trying to bring it back almost like the very basics of what kind of insights are we talking about here?
Well, just imagine you're a brand and you want to position a service or a product in the world, yeah, and you may consider sports as a kind of potential way of doing that, yeah. Then you would actually start thinking about, well, where should I actually invest? Who's actually the right partner for me? Where should I go? And then it starts to get really complicated, yeah. You would have to look out for a sport or a sports platform which is addressing the people that you actually want to sell into, yeah? So is there a fit between the people that are usually buying your service and products, or that are supposed to be, and that are consuming either the events or the broadcasts or any other activities of a sports platform? Yeah. So are these sport platforms actually fitting the group of people and the way how you want to address the people? Yeah. To give you a simple example, and I hope it's really simple, is if you are selling something which is, say, in its nature cheap and nothing specific and nothing sophisticated, yeah, then you may not be rightfully positioned in golf or in tennis, where there's, say, more sophisticated, richer, better educated people. Or if you want to sell something which is addressing women's need, then you shouldn't go into a sports which is highly related to men being fans and athletes. Yeah. So it's about taking a look on the fit between what a brand is looking for that wants to advertise in sports, and a sports property, sports platform, sports rights holder that is offering exactly the space that it requires to be successful. Yeah. So, and then what's in advertisement, you just go in and you look for a kind of the TV channels or the web channels or whatever that are providing the space. Yeah. Here you would really have to dig into sports events, into fan demographics, into event schedules and stuff like this to find the right fit. Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie, to take it back to what we've been discussing before, without wanting to make this episode too much of an Irish sales pitch, we've touched on esports and Twitch so far. So with eBay Janos's next Twitch series is going to be, if they want a sponsor, if they want a title sponsor for the event, then this is the sort of things Iris could do, would be analyze the demographics of who is following eBay, where are they from, when are they interacting, and how they would work with the brand. So why that sponsor would pick eBay.
Okay, that's really interesting. I wouldn't worry about this being a big Irish show. I think that we've not had anyone or anything like this on the podcast really before. We've not talked about these kind of data insights in terms of marketing and sponsorship and that kind of space. And I think we've spoken before, we got a lot of students that listen to this podcast because maybe they want to work in sport media, or they're interested in research on that side of thing. We had last week Dr. Alex Fenton on talking about sort of fan engagement and trying to track data, and he was talking about netnography, which is very qualitative data behind that, and getting a bit of insight into fans and how their behaviors and how they and then interact. But we've not really spoken about this side of it, and this is a whole world that actually is very important to sport media, right?
Yeah, I think in the end, just imagine you're a little sport like curling. And when I say little, I don't mean that this is not a serious sport. I'm just saying, like, if you compare it to football or to motorsports or to more popular sports, how do you then actually attract a sponsor? Because just imagine you're sitting in this company, you have to decide where to go. Then football sounds like a secure bet. Yeah, or everybody's interested in football. Everybody's going there. Yeah. But football has got some advantages. It may be quite expensive to advertise there. Yeah. Then football is attracting very different groups of fans. Yeah. So you may actually lose 80% of your efforts because it's not addressing the right people. Yeah. So as a curling or as a wrestling or as whatever type of sport, you have to figure out where are you special. Yeah. What makes you special, and why is this attractive to somebody who wants to advertise in sports? So just imagine you would want to introduce a new service or a new product in countries like Iran or Kazakhstan or countries like this. Yeah, wrestling may be a very, very good choice because these sports are very popular in these countries. There's lots of events around this. There's a lot of fans following the broadcast, a lot of fans on the social media platforms. So you may actually have a much better position than football to sell you as a kind of an advertisement platform. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring people together based on useful arguments and based on making their business cases more successful. Yeah.
That's really interesting, really important from the side of view of a brand or someone with a service or a product. I'd imagine, and I work on maybe on this side of it a little bit more, that it's important then for the clubs or the rights holders or the people creating the content and the sport media to know their audience so that they can have that relationship. How could you talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's an essential element not only of a kind of figuring out where a match between a sports platform and a brand could be, yeah, but it's also in a very important element when creating the content that people are interested in, yeah. So just imagine you want to go into a country and you're asking yourself, what do I have to present those people so that they will like my content, that they will engage, that they will learn the image attributes that the brands are looking for, yeah, then you would have to know, who are these people, yeah, what do they like, what are they interested in, how old are they, do they use the mobile phone, the laptop, the tablet, the whatever, yeah, the TV, yeah, to inform themselves about sports, yeah, and how do I have to cut the content, how do I have to design the content, that, and what it should be a kind of the content of the content, yeah, is it about the things that they're passionate about, the things that they're interested in, the things that they like, yeah. I mean, there's always very generic things like human interaction, emotion stuff, everybody likes this, yeah, but these people may have very specific interests that you may not even be aware about. They may like to go to cinema, they may like to go to the theater, or they may like to be at home and be cooking, yeah. So if you know these things, you can create content which is just resonating better with the people than if you were just shooting in the blue, yeah.
Yeah, so a question almost. On you go. I don't want to.
No. I was just going to. I mean, it was more of a comment than a question about that being a cycle. That, you know, me, for example, as a content producer or a TV producer, knows the audience that I'm catering to, then I'm able to go to a sponsor or a brand and say, hey, this is the audience that we're working with. And so then we can get a product that fits that market as well. And everything seems a lot more to make sense rather than having kind of a random product with a random content trying to meet a market that doesn't make any sense.
This experience, making this experience measurable, yeah, and available everywhere. That's what it's about, yeah. You know, sometimes you've got people in your network where you can rely on experience, on their knowledge and their capabilities, but sometimes you don't, and then you may need to look into data, yeah. Sometimes you may have the one person saying left and the other saying right, yeah. So either then one is bigger than the other, then the decision is easy, or you're looking at data and you get a joint opinion, yeah.
Yeah, no, so it's certainly, I mean, pretty interesting. Obviously, working in the industry for a number of years with Iris for the past year. How much, like you say, Peter, how much data there is out there. It isn't as simple as, yeah, the football fans might like beer and the golf fans might like champagne. There's so much more you can split, so much more demographics that are available when it comes to the data and the different strands of the industry.
And nowadays, I mean, everybody's undertaking a huge effort to understand the fans better and to understand the resonance with the fans better, yeah. So there's all types of data that you could think of, and it's not just with Iris, it's just in the marketplace, yeah. So there is very big panels where people are being asked on a daily basis for their habits, for what they've seen, for what they've noticed, for what they think, yeah. It's 10,000s of people in all of the major markets around the globe, yeah. And you could actually go into and see, okay, if I want to go into a specific market and I've got a specific group of people in my mind, what are they actually thinking? What are they actually saying? Who are they? What do they plan to buy within the next 12 months? Yeah, is it rather the more expensive or rather kind of information is available? Then you can certainly review all of kind of the broadcasts that were undertaken, be it on TV, be it on OTT. You can figure out how many people are watching it. Who are those people? Yeah. So what are they actually looking? What are they actually consuming? It goes into the analysis of social media postings, followership. Yeah. So if I want to go to the next Olympics and I want to run a campaign for my sport in order to get successful in the Olympic measurements, yeah. Do I rather invest my money in the US or do I rather invest my money in India? And then you need to go into considerations to say, okay, to how many people am I already connected via my social media network? Yeah, is it a bigger share of the fans or is it a smaller share? Is it a big number or a small number? Yeah, and are my athletes going to be rather successful in the US or are they rather going to be successful if they're coming from India? So these considerations for taking decisions is very important. Yeah, and just to give you one reference, we've been recommending for one client who wanted to spend his money in the US to rather spend it in India because it had two very promising athletes in India and just a very, very small share of all of his wrestling fans, yeah, were actually connected with him via social media platforms, yeah. So we said, so you want to extend your footprint in India, and you are ready to bet on the success or somewhat of a success of the Indian athletes, you will make a much bigger jump forward than if you invest your money in the US, yeah. And these are a kind of decisions, making sure that the return on investment of the decisions of our clients is increasing. That's what we're trying to do, yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting, and sort of being able to connect the data that way. I know a lot of sports teams. You know, I work in football for the most part. A lot of football teams, when they do sign a player from whatever country, that almost opens up a whole new market to them. And I think I can't. I'm only maybe surmising, but I think a lot of teams take that into account sometimes when signing players. You know, if they say, "Ah, this player, like he's good, he's a good player." But what's more, he could open us up into this market with our, I don't know, the reach of our online video platform. It's almost a business deal in that sense. I wanted to ask. Sorry, I wanted to ask. Obviously, we all know kind of about data, the basics of data that can be collected, like social media likes and shares or retweets, or I don't know, on our OTT video platform, we maybe get number of views or. But as someone that doesn't really dive deeply into these things, and it looks like Iris are the company that dive deeply into the data, and a lot of these lessons that you're talking about come from analyzing the data. What is the kind of the data collection process? How, without going kind of too technical, but what's the effort that goes into bringing all this data together and then getting all these lessons out of it, which are pretty astonishing, really. Some, you know, like the example there with the company that decided, you know, rather than going for America, we should go to India because it makes more sense following the data. How does this sort of arise?
Well, look, the first thing is, I think, just a passion for sports, and not just a passion for sports, but also a passion for numbers and facts. Yeah. So the people that are at Iris are usually combining the passion for sports and a passion for working with data. Yeah. And a strong gene to be a good service provider to clients, adding value by consulting someone. If you bring that, then you would be perfectly right at Iris. Yeah. And before I come to the core of your question, you mentioned that a lot of students are following the podcast here. If you want to have an entry point into sports industry, then you're either a very good athlete and your chances will be high, yeah, or you're trying to take it the very hard way, trying to get engaged by a club without anything to offer from your own side, else than that you've got a potential to get a good employee, yeah. If you have been with Iris, you would be bringing a lot of assets to clubs, to rights holders, to federations, because you're closing a knowledge gap. Yeah, the knowledge gap is to be able to help answering such questions to get more successful. That's actually the core product of what we're trying to do. This is the core passion that we and our employees are following, and that's the core reason why we enjoy working for Iris. Yeah, if you then come to the point, how do you actually do that? Yeah. Then you're absolutely right. It starts with collecting just a lot of data and being able to combine the data to useful questions and answers. Yeah. So that's a skill in itself. Everybody can read a kind of a social media performance report, or everybody can log in and look up the followers of a platform. Yeah. But it's about combining the dots. It's about understanding what the client is looking for, and then having the experience and the creativity to put the right elements of data together that you've either been collecting or buying, or that you have in your house, to say, okay, if we look at it the following way, then it's going to be the right answer for our client without knowing how the answer is going to be. When we started this for the question about investing the money in the US or in India, we didn't have an answer. We just had a kind of some traces to follow. And when we followed the traces, we are combining the data. We said, okay, look, these are the arguments. It's quite obvious once you put the data together. It sounds like a simple thing, but getting the data together in a way that speaks to the client is, I think, the miracle. Yeah. I think all of our clients, once they see the data in front of them, are able to take good and informed decisions by themselves. But get the data in front of them, that's the challenge. Yeah.
Having worked with, on a very light sense, companies that provide us with data, and I worked briefly in SEO for another sport championship. They would come to us and say things like, well, these titles got more clicks, and from looking at that, we can say that, I don't know, capital letters and exclamation marks or asking questions are the keys to getting more clicks. And so it was very light conclusions. But what I saw from that was that you can put the data in front of people, but it's making it make sense, making that data tell a story that the client can relate to, or that whoever you're telling it to can relate to, is kind of the key. Certainly, from being on the side of someone that was being told how the data will, what we'd learned. Is that something that you ask of your staff, that they come with the ability to tell these kinds of stories?
I think it's very difficult if you get started with us to have these stories in mind, because it requires understanding what are our clients trying to do, what can we bring to the table, and then it's also a mixture of creativity and experience. Yeah, so getting us there to be able to tell a kind of the high art of what we're doing, and it takes you a few years to get there. And the first thing that you need to understand is that the way how you've been assembling the data is not relevant to the client. The single figures that you're providing are not relevant to the client because they see them themselves. Yeah, and all of these things are the as you say, the easy things. Do this, then you get more clicks. Yeah. So the difficult thing is understanding what the client is after, finding the right traces in the data to say, okay, these elements might be able to deliver us a useful conclusion. And then, as you say, transform it into a reasonable, useful conclusion that everybody would look upon and say, okay, yeah, this is very plausible, this sounds right, and we should do that. Yeah. So this is really hard work, even if it doesn't look like hard work. Yeah?
So, I think certainly from my point of view, like you say, it's about telling the story. And what we're going to come on to soon is the recent TV and OTT Olympic study that we put together. But from my point of view, from this study, you're right. It's not about exactly how to create this data or where to generate it from. You've got to have as well the passion and that knowledge of sport. So one of the new things in the Olympics in 2020, for example, was 3x3 basketball. So for me, as a sports fan, I made sure I knew the format of it, how it works. So I'm familiar with sports competitions, so I know what preliminary rounds, what repechage is, what quarterfinals, semifinals are. So as Peter said, you've got to have either the love of sport or the love of data, and then merge it together to create that successful endpoint for the client. So yeah, with the so we just touched on the Olympic report then. So yeah, Peter, do you wanted to introduce us? I've been working as a small part of that team, but do you want to introduce it to the listeners what specifically we're talking about?
Yeah, Jamie, that's what we've done here is actually a very big analysis of the Olympic presence of sports and disciplines in the most important Olympic markets in the world. So it is about analyzing the TV presence. It's about analyzing the OTT, so the Zone, Eurosport, whatever OTT platform presence, and also the social media presence. And what we've been trying to do here for our client world is we've been trying to put that into a comparison versus their presence in 2016, as long as they've been part in 2016, because one of the major things for sports is from Olympics to understand what has changed. Yeah, what actually happened to them, what presence did they have, who's actually been following their sports on the different channels, on the different platforms. Yeah, and trying to get an understanding on how they're doing and how they're developing, if they've developed successfully or not so successful. So it's not just about how many people have been in touch with our sport, but also about where do they come from, why are they in contact with us, which platforms have they been using, and who are they actually? Are they rich people, poor people, young, old, women, men? Yeah. So this is the Olympics report that Stuart's been talking about, and you can imagine there is an endless amount of sports present on the different media whilst the Olympic Games are going on. It's the biggest sports event in the world. It's only every 4 years. Everybody's actually in a fever before it starts and whilst it's going on. Yeah, in our industry. So this is really a big thing. Yeah, and what we've been taking specific looks upon is what are kind of the major trends outside in the market. What are the big changes? Yeah. What's really going on in the industry? And you may know, obviously, from a kind of the COVID situation that Tokyo has been under some very specific circumstances. Yeah, no audiences, no spectators from the outside, very limited experience for the athletes, very limited exchange between the people that are around the sports teams. Yeah, so some very, very specific situation. And also the sentiment in Japan was a mixture of optimism and hope, but also very much skepticism, fear, yeah, that there was a danger by everybody from foreign countries coming in and maybe infecting people in Japan. So I think it's been games, and I mean, just the fact that it's called Tokyo 2020 and it took place in 2021 clearly signs that this has been a very, very specific event. Yeah. So looking at what we found is there is things that are not so much surprising. You would expect to see that. So 5 years after 2016, you see that there is a huge presence in OTT. So a lot of people have been following the digital content, not so much the linear TV coverage. Yeah, specifically younger people, specifically countries and markets where these where mobile phones are one of the most important, if not the most important device to follow sports content. Yeah, there's been a huge push from that side, and a lot of people consuming a lot of content via those channels. Yeah, so that is, I think, one of the very, very big things that we have seen. Yeah, the second one is there's been shifts in a lot of markets about who was actually broadcasting the Olympic Games. But I think the biggest change with global effect was certainly that Eurosport and Discovery have actually been buying the rights to broadcast the Olympic Games, so that a lot of content was actually behind the paywall, where it's been freely available before, or we saw a mixture of how the content was distributed. And whenever that's the place, then you're asking yourself, okay, is this now about money making and the fans are being cut off? So is there a kind of a negative impact on the sports, or is this about additional competition, additional platforms offering content, trying to present it more attractively than it was before? So is it an enrichment for the sport, or is it actually a limitation for the sport? And what we can clearly say is that with regards to the quantitative figures of people that have been following sports on linear TV, it's given Europe some hard hit in the absolute numbers. Yeah. At least this is true wherever figures were available, because some of these pay platforms are not even metered, so you wouldn't even exactly know how many people are following it. Yeah. But then on the other side, if that's the case, it's usually not big enough that metering makes sense. So I would say that certainly within Europe, there's been a lot of dropout of people that have been following the Olympics on free-to-air channels in the past that couldn't do that anymore to the same extent. Yeah. So then there's
Is that they couldn't do it because, just to confirm, someone else had bought the rights and they put it behind a paywall?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it would have taken you an effort and a payment to get access to the rights, where you would usually have people that do it, where rather the hardcore fans and maybe more rich. Yeah. Then you've got others that if they don't get the opportunity to watch this, they watch something else. Yeah. And that's a kind of the balance where we're now in reviewing what has happened and reviewing the trends. Yeah. It's certainly important to understand, was that overall a kind of a positive move for the Olympic sports world, or what is the resume of it? Yeah. There's more things that are creating bigger changes. So just imagine that the whole circus of sports events has been moved from the time zone of South America into the time zone of Asia. So knowing when that sports are usually taking place in the daytime, you're also limited to when can you actually present the sports, and can you actually fully consider where the majority of your fans of a sport is residing or not. Yeah. Because if you can, then you would usually have a kind of the events taking place in the prime time. Yeah. So the Olympic Games are a sports where a lot of sports events cannot take place in the prime time. Yeah. And also there is a competition between the sports, which may differ by country. Yeah. So say in Kazakhstan, people in prime time, if they have the choice, may show wrestling. Yeah. Whereas if it's in China, it may be table tennis. Yeah. So this time shift and the time of the day when the events were taking place is obviously another major driver of the consumption. Yeah. So sports that may have been very successful when the events were taking place in South America and the broadcasts were in prime time, may now look less successful if that has been shifted to Asia, and the sports may take place at 7 in the morning. Yeah, so these are some of the major changes and insights that we've seen. And overall, it's amazing to see that in the combined coverage, the digital part and the linear TV part, it's still an increase. It's again been the most successful Olympic Games with regards to the media coverage, even under those circumstances that were really, really very difficult. Yeah.
So there are several things sort of going on here. There's the same that happens every time with the Olympics, every 4 years, 5 years on this occasion, of course, which is that the time zone changes depending on the location of the competition. But then there's also this shift to digital and shift to online or shift to mobile, or and I'm making notes as you're speaking, and I feel like I could ask things forever. Because this is kind of data's not my thing, but when I speak to people that like have got data and they're drawing conclusions from it, I'm like, oh wow, I need to learn something here. So yeah, I'm quite excited about this podcast. Well, I have been since we scheduled it. I'm going to start by asking. You said that the move from linear TV to OTT platforms, the sort of online video platforms, has been probably as we expected. It's grown. I think we've seen that across not just sport, but the entire TV sector, that more people are watching on online platforms rather than linear platforms. Can I ask if there was a move from online? Sorry, excuse me. If there's a move from live consumption to more on demand, or because I guess that's the big change that we've seen. It started. I remember I worked briefly with the BBC in 2012 when they were showing off the technology they were doing for the London Olympics, and then on demand was getting bigger, and now on demand we can watch in 4K, and it's on demand's more powerful than ever. And with it being in Japan, it's not the best time for Western world to watch some of these sports and their favored sports. So how have we seen the change? I don't know how much you could say, but how much of a change have we seen from live consumption to on demand consumption?
You're raising nearly all relevant trends. Yeah, number one is obviously there's a 5-year-old or a 5-year-long group of people that have left the measurements. Yeah, they're even not looking sport anymore based on their age, or they haven't been able to go into the pay TV, or in the worst case, they may even have died since Tokyo 2016. And people that when Tokyo 2016 was taking place were 10 or 12. Are now in the group of the measured people that flow into the statistics. Yeah, so it certainly the OTT world has been benefiting from this group of people coming into the sports interest in the best years as young people, young grown-ups, young adults. Yeah, that's certainly one of the drivers of the digital OTT world. The second one is certainly that the supply has gotten much, much better and much more professional than it's been 5 years ago. Yeah, a lot of the free-to-air channels, all of the big stations have had a very wide palette of sports that they were broadcasting live. And even for a sports event, say that in a certain market may not be in the core interest of fans, you could actually see that in the major markets with a very saturated OTT market, each single minute of the available broadcasting material has actually been made available. Yeah, so people have the chance to watch the content where they may be hardcore fans of, but in previous times when there was a live broadcast, maybe just 2% of that have been shown, or maybe just 5% of that have been shown. And now you've got the choice to consume 100% of that. Yeah. So, and then the third element that you're raising is certainly, and we've seen that for some of the sports and some of the federations. Yeah, if I can't follow the sports when it's up live, because I may need to get up the next morning and go to work, and I cannot afford to be deadly tired, I then, when I come home, yeah, I just watch my highlights on OTT, or I watch my replay on OTT. Yeah, so I think all kinds of these trends are clearly visible in the data. Yeah, so it's on some of this OTT content, it's difficult to say how much of that was now live and how much of that was just a highlight consumption, yeah, or a replay. Yeah, so that will certainly require digging deeper into statistics, but as the Olympics are one of the most important, if not the most important commercial event, you can be very sure that there will be very deep analysis going on to find out these trends and the meanings. Yeah, certainly. But coming to your point more generically, as we are also kind of co-working on PricewaterhouseCoopers on the future of sports study, we clearly see that there is a continuing trend that specifically young people, or let's say younger people, it's not just the young people anymore, that there's a continuing trend to consume more highlights. Yeah, it does not necessarily completely go to a lost time for life. I think life is still very, very strong, and it's still the moment which inspires you to become a fan. Yeah, but just imagine a lot of people are driven in their consumption habits by their most favorite device. Yeah, the mobile phone has actually taken boring time away from us. If we're on the train in the morning, we've got 7 minutes from station A to station B. It's not worthwhile to start a live consumption or a replay consumption of a football match, but you may watch a kind of highlights. Yeah, so the device and the consumption habits are actually dictating the content, which is my favorite content. Yeah, because I may just have a certain limit or budget of time. So that's why I'm more favorably consuming highlight content than I was maybe in the past. Yeah, then some people are saying, but I can't find it fully confirmed, that live content has lost attraction. We still see that live content is the most inspiring and the most interesting content. Yeah, but there's also consumers that just dive into live content when they know that the decisions are up. Maybe the penalty kicking, maybe the last 20 minutes of a match. Yeah, so all of these trends are there, and I think, just imagine, I've grown up in a world where there was a cage around me. It was an invisible cage. It was a certain amount of TV channels that were around. There was a strongly dictated broadcasting schedule, and I had just the choice: do I switch on or not, or do I switch to this or to that channel? Yeah, this cage is gone. My girls, girls are sitting downstairs. They can watch whatever they want at whichever time that they want. And they're looking at me like I'm somebody from Mars, and they're saying, "Why do you watch TV?" They dictate to you when the content is up. Yeah, you've got the choice: go to Netflix, go to Amazon Prime, go to wherever you want. There's the content that you want. So why are you still relying on a kind of this old-fashioned dictatorship of having a schedule? Yeah, and I have to admit that people are just used to some things. I'm also kind of consuming the Zone, Eurosport, all of these things, Netflix, yeah. But clearly there is still habits around, yeah. And with me and with people of my age, these habits are probably going to be disappearing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sort of romanticism, isn't there, to that linear TV of kind of, oh, let's see what's on, rather than choosing what to put on. I have to admit, I'm one of these people that I watch almost everything on demand. I've watched even sport. I watch very little actual live sport. I think probably Euro 2020 and the Olympics are the exception for me. And I certainly, as you said about everything being covered, I loved that. Having been able to log into the app and being sort of like, oh, what sport shall I watch today? You know, it was as a fan of sport and a fan of sport entertainment, it was just great to kind of go to A1 Sport and maybe even just follow an athlete, not even I'm living in Spain, I'm English, maybe not even an English or a Spanish athlete, just someone that I thought was doing really well in this sport that I've maybe never followed, and kind of like following their trajectory through it. It's the Olympics is something special, I think, in that sense.
And what you're describing is also a big trend that we see. It's an internationalization of sports interest. Yeah. Because you're not limited to the things that people bring up to you on the screen, but you can actually choose the best that's around. Yeah, you can go to Taiwan and see kind of mixed martial arts. Yeah, if you like. Yeah, or you can go to the US and watch the NFL or the NBA. Yeah, so the limitations that we had. I mean, just imagine. Yeah, when I was young, I was trying to find out how my favorite football club has played. Yeah, and if a match couldn't take place for the weather conditions, it was rather a matter of coincidence if you got the result or not. Yeah. So because you wouldn't know when the match was taking place. Nowadays, you can watch up anything on the internet, really anything, any result, any historic result even. So had I missed one of those matches in my past, I could probably look it up today. Yeah.
Absolutely. That was something we did when when the Barca TV Plus platform launched, they did like a drama film about it was a granddad who I think he'd had a stroke or something. I can't remember quite the context. And basically he'd forgotten an entire season of Barca when they won the treble. And his granddaughter said, "Oh well, look, we can subscribe to Barca TV Plus," and she set it up, and they watched it as if like it was unfolding in as it happened, you know. And they got their friends around to watch the final, and it was a nice film. It was a really like touching film, filmed in the midst of the pandemic. But it was also just a nice way of showing that this is, whether it's on the Barca TV Plus platform or on DAZN or on I think Formula One, you've got a back catalogue of some 30 years, that you can go and relive some of the greatest moments in sport history.
It's a trend that we've generally seen in COVID. Yeah, COVID was driving, on the one side, digitalization very strongly. Yeah, so the supply and also the demand of digital content was exploding, going through the roof. Yeah, specifically in times when live sport didn't take place. Yeah, even simulated sports was just going through the roof. Yeah, gaming went through the roof. Yeah, and what you could see is that totally different types of content have been really, really successful. Yeah, some rights holders have gone to a kind of their archive and getting the best moments onto play, which is what you're just describing. Yeah, but then there were very, very creative movies as well. Yeah, so people who were not allowed to interact with each other were playing table tennis over the roof of their house. Yeah, because they couldn't see each other, yeah, but they could play table tennis over the roof of the house, yeah. I've seen a sports climber who's doing a sports climbing event in his kitchen, yeah, climbing on a kind of the furniture without touching the ground, yeah. So these are a kind of the things that take place under other circumstances, and I think it's a staying benefit that this creativity and this understanding that everything which is there to entertain you is available, yeah, that this has received a major push, really. Yeah,
you're right. It's a completely different experience from the years before. Again, just back to the Olympics before. I mean, I would consider myself to be an Olympics fan. I'm not a swimming fan or a sport climbing fan. I'm an Olympics fan. So as we've been saying, it's good to have the option of watching the Olympics. It's always on during those 2 weeks every 4 years. But it's interesting how it's completely different from when I was a kid watching the Sydney Olympics. It would be you'd watch 20 minutes on whatever the BBC told me to watch before school, and then this year it's just whatever I want, whenever I want, across either on demand or live. It's complete change in habits, as you see. So I mean, do we think, Peter, between now and Paris, which is an unusually short time between Olympics, do you see the shift towards OTT being even more, or will the shift back to a European time zone maybe mean the tradition of watching prime time get some sort of renaissance?
you may see a certain level of renaissance in Europe, but that is then rather going to be based on the time shift than on changed or reversed consumption habits. I think that the trend in the direction of digital content being available when, everywhere, that's certainly going to be continuing. Yeah, because the younger age groups are even more kind of relying on this than a kind of the people that are at an age of 25, 30, 35. Yeah. So I would say that we probably see a continuation of that trend, but then we will also see a kind of some of the time zone shifts reverting kind of the interest and the consumption in different sports again, based on how the interest is distributed across the world. So will be very interesting for us to see these 3 Olympics on 3 different time zones in comparison, because then you will have a full picture and you can take your conclusions from that. So you see, Jamie, we're already looking ahead at an additional set of data that provides more insights, because that's say the fundament of our passion. And as I said before, the nice thing about this is every club, every agency, every broadcaster, everybody needs these skills. And when you've spent some time at Iris, you can either say, this is what I love, this is what I like, this is where I stay. Or you can say, okay, this is my jumping board in a club. I've got something to offer. I've got something that makes me successful there or anywhere else in the sports, media, venue, whatever world. Yeah.
So this report, and like I say, I've got loads of questions that I think I could ask specifically, and at the top, I've got a list of things here that I'd love to ask. But this report, then, it looks like you've looked at every sport. I mean, you spoke at the start of this episode about curling and wrestling, which are both, and I assume you mean sort of Olympic wrestling, not the professional wrestling with the steel chairs, which are both quite niche sports, certainly in terms of people watching them. And you talked about Iran and Kazakhstan. So you're looking at a very broad geographical market. What's the report then? What's kind of for Iris? Where does this report go? What do you guys do with it? And how will it become significant moving forward?
Okay, so the importance of the report is it's been commissioned by ASOAF, which is the organization of the roof organization of the Summer Olympic Sports. So ASOAF will have a kind of the complete overview about all of the developments of the sports based on this commissioning. However, the major value add lies in that being available to the sports very soon. And when I say soon, it's relative, after the Olympics. Yeah. So a few weeks after the Olympics, when everybody has taken the break, when the Paralympics have been done, because it's usually the similar teams in the federations taking care for it. Yeah. As soon as they can breath a bit of a fresh air and are a little bit more relaxed after those two big events, they can take a look at a kind of how many people have they actually been in touch with, where were they coming from, yeah, and where are they oldest, where are they youngest, where are they most female. So what is their profile as a sports, and how have they done at the Olympics compared versus the last Olympics? And they are using this, number one, as kind of the first official available figures that they can publish around how they have been performing as a sport. Yeah. So the entire community, the entire professional sports community in those sports is waiting for feedback how it actually went. And how it actually went with regards to the medals is clear when the event is finished. But how it actually went with regards to the fan interest, with regards to the media consumption, yeah, with regards to who are the people that had shown an interest in the sport, yeah, that's what's up with our report that ASOAF is going to send to their member federations. Yeah, so every sports exactly understands where they stand at the Olympics, yeah, and how it compares to where they've been standing in 2016. Yeah, and from there, important decisions are finding their ways. Yeah. So if you see that, for example, in a country where you didn't have a big fan base consuming your sport last time, now you have one. Yeah. Then that is probably leveraging some investments going forward, where you say, okay, there seems to be a fan base in the sports. Now we've got the proof points at our hands. Yeah. So do we actually work stronger and invest more in professionalizing that market, using the potential for us? Are we going to be moving events there? Because there seem to be people that are interested in. Yeah. So are we actually already using this fan base for our broadcasting purposes? Are we playing the right social media platforms that people in this market would actually want to consume content upon? So these are kind of initially PR and marketing based decisions. Then it could be actually sports strategic decisions. Yeah. And then it could actually become commercial decisions. A lot of consequences are resulting from those reports in the best case. Yeah.
So this is relevant it's an Olympic Games study, Olympic sports study, but it's relevant for sports beyond there. I don't know, looking at what you learned about football in the Olympics, maybe Premier League or La Liga or UEFA could say, oh, look, there's an emerging market here, or I don't know, EuroLeague with basketball. So it's got significance beyond the Olympics.
Certainly, yes. Yeah, it's a general fan trends heavily impacted by the Olympics time zone, the Olympics fan habits, yeah, but still providing a lot of insight, sport by sport, market by market. Yeah.
Great. So I think I've almost feel like a matchmaker here. Maybe I should leave you guys chatting all evening. But I know we've I guess you've both got future appointments. So I mean, Peter, the theme of our podcast, it's 21 lessons for sport and media in the 21st century. So if you could summarize everything we've talked about today in just a few snappy sentences to be your Peter Weber's lesson on sport and media, what would you phrase that as?
Let's make it a very a very personal experience summary. Yeah. So what Iris has given to me is that else than everybody else, I don't have to go to work anymore. Yeah. I go to my fun. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to offer to other people as well, Stuart. And I think looking at you, yeah. So if I can find 10 more people or 20 more people saying that, then I think that's been a good thing to be done. Yeah.
Perfect. No, so I'd certainly agree with that a lot. So thanks again for joining us today and for sharing your insights both over the last year and also in this episode to Jamie. I'm sure it's been a pretty beneficial experience for all of us, and
I sent a message to Stuart about 10 minutes ago that just this podcast could go on forever and ever. like I say, I've got a whole long list of questions noted down. Maybe we need to do a part 2 or something down the line if you'd come back on again, Peter.
Very happy to do that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to your audience without knowing who they are. So here are my greetings. I hope they find it inspiring and enriching. And if anyone has any questions related to it or any ideas or thoughts or feedback, they should just feel invited to approach me via my LinkedIn profile or whatever other channel they prefer. Yeah?
And so maybe that's a good opportunity then. So find you on LinkedIn. Where can we find Iris and follow them? I'm looking at both of you because both of you.
So no, it's also so Iris Sport on LinkedIn, or iris.sport is the website, so you can find all our contact details there. And that's another story for another time. Should Iris, as a business-to-business organization, should it be investing more into Twitter and Instagram? That's again a story for another time, perhaps.
Brilliant, Peter. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for everyone for joining us and listening to what I think has been a very, very insightful conversation. And like I say, I think could have gone for a lot longer. And if you enjoyed the episode, do feel free to subscribe, leave us a little review, and share with your friends as well. Thanks again to Peter, and thanks for listening.